welcome back to Stock Photo Insight. This is episode 2, where we're going to be discussing Shutterstock and some of the latest challenges. Here are myself, Lee Torrens of Microstock Diaries. We also have Amos Struck of Stock Photo Press and Paul Melcher of Capture. You can check out our website at stockphotoinsight.com. Let's kick it off with discussion of Scott Brout, who was previously VP of Content at Shutterstock, and this month has appeared at Adobe as Head of Content, a new role for them. Paul, what do you think? What's the implications of this?
To me, it's a clear signal that Adobe is going straight on for Shutterstock. We saw it with Adobe Stock and the pricing. Now with this announcement, looks like they're probably going to try to poach a lot of Shutterstock contributors, or at least use Scott's knowledge of the content of Shutterstock to continue or promote their fight against Shutterstock. Amos, what do you think?
I think it's great. I mean, I met him on the last Microsoft Expo, and he's great, and he definitely moved forward with Fotolia and the content strategy, because this is one of the weak points of Adobe Stock and Fotolia at the moment, that they really need new, fresh content to make the subscription or the credit subscription worthwhile for their customers.
I also understand that Scott's not the only relatively recent senior executive departing from Shutterstock, and I understand there's quite a few gaps in the content department and possibly some other departments at Shutterstock. So they may be looking to regroup, rehire, and fill those gaps in the relative near term. Let's talk a little bit about Shutterstock's price volatility. Amos?
Let me just quickly pull a chart, and then Paul will probably explain it better for us.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen is Shutterstock taking the stock taking a little beating in the recent weeks. Most of it coming from a report from Morgan Stanley, a study that they've made saying that 55% of Shutterstock's client would jump to Adobe Stock, and that seemed to have made some impact on the stock price of Shutterstock. I'm sorry, but Lee, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean the share price has always been volatile. It's definitely taken a hit recently. There was a clear hit from the Morgan Stanley report. They rated it at $40, and it's been above $40 for quite some time. I think around a year so far. So it's definitely not a good sign. I'm a little bit dubious about the 55% of customers that would leave. From my conversations with buyers, which admittedly are not too many, I think there's a lot more important factors about their decisions than just integration with the tools, primarily search and the availability of the types of images they want. Shutterstock still has a way better search facility than Fotolia, and has a lot more images, and depending on who you ask, better images as well. Amos, do you have insights?
Yeah, I think most customers will firstly stick with Shutterstock and the other stock agencies they might be with at the moment, because, I mean, yeah, it's nice to have this integrated features into Adobe Photoshop, but I think it's not good enough to make the people jump ship yet. Also, the content is another thing. I have a lot of people asking if buyers will move away from Shutterstock and move into Fotolia or Adobe Stock. But I urgently suggest to just perform the same search on both platforms, and you will see who delivers the better images and the better search results. And that's actually a pretty decent answer for the most buyers, because at the moment Shutterstock really has, in my opinion, the best search results.
Yeah, if they're saving time on the workflow by having the Fotolia Adobe integration, but then losing that time or more on having to scroll through more search results, it's a net loss for them. So also backing up my assertion that that fewer than 55% will look to move over. Let's cross over now to exclusivity. We discussed exclusivity offline the other day and had some interesting insights into Shutterstock, who's never had any exclusivity. Amos, do you want to run us through that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like John Orange said, he will never introduce exclusivity or something like this, right? He said he doesn't believe in that concept, and I think that's something what a lot of people are very, very curious about at the moment. Is like, how can Shutterstock make sure that only they have the content? Obviously, every or most of the stock photographers, they are supplying their images first to Shutterstock. They are very much happy with them because they're selling fast, they're selling the most. Usually it's over 60% of earnings from Shutterstock for the most stock agencies, stock photographers and contributors. And I think they do well of thinking about maybe not exclusivity, but maybe another feature or option which locks in different content somehow to be diverse and really be sure that not everybody gets the same content, and then at the end the best integrated and the best search and the best price will win. Paul, what do you think?
I'm just not sure if exclusivity is such a big tool in a fight against the competition. We've seen iStock years ago make a really hard push for exclusivity and trying to close the door on the content to its competition by offering very interesting deals to exclusive contributors and signing up big names, and it didn't really go anywhere. So I agree with you guys that it's interesting, and John Oranger and Shutterstock has never taken that approach, and now with Fotolia coming in, maybe they will change. Maybe Fotolia, or should I say Adobe Stock, will start increasing their hold on contributors and force Shutterstock to fight back. That's certainly something that could seriously happen. Definitely. But what's your thought, Lee?
Yeah, I have a slightly different view on it. I think the iStock implementation of exclusivity was extremely effective for a time. After it was up and running and they had, it had gotten some traction and there was growth, a lot of growth behind the company, I think it became very powerful because they combined it with upload limits. And those upload limits were higher for exclusives and lower for non-exclusives. And what that did was it meant the non-exclusive contributors, who were all also on Shutterstock and Fotolia and the other agencies, uploaded only their best-selling images. So iStock ended up with half of their collection, and they historically said consistently that half of their collection, 50%, was exclusive. 50% of their images that the other agencies didn't have, and that was the spectrum of excellent images down to really poor images. But the other half, the 50%, was the best of what the other agencies had because the contributors would upload their best-selling images to iStock due to the upload limits. And so for a very long time, Shutterstock's collection was far superior to all the others. With all the changes that happened over the last 4 or 5 years, with getting more involved in iStock and removing some of the aspects that made iStock what it was, that's dissolved, and the exclusivity is now much less significant for iStock and much less of a problem for Shutterstock and Fotolia with Adobe Stock. In terms of Shutterstock, I think my point of view comes from a non-trivial quantity of contributors who I've spoken to who have their entire portfolio on Shutterstock and they don't upload to anyone else. When I first came across this, I was curious because Shutterstock not offering any exclusivity, there's no reason why somebody can't leverage all the hard work they've done to create those images and also put them on iStock and Fotolia and some of the other agencies and multiply their income for relatively little extra work. The feedback I got from the first person and consistently from the other people I spoke to who were doing the same thing was that Shutterstock accounted for so much of their income that it wasn't even worth just the small amount of extra work to get the images onto other agencies. So they were de facto exclusive with Shutterstock. And even the ones who did upload to all of the agencies, Shutterstock was invariably between 30 and 60% of their income. So for anyone who had a high portion, was in the higher range and getting 50% or more of their income from Shutterstock, an exclusivity option from Shutterstock would have been very lucrative. They could have doubled their income and reduced their workload, or more than doubled their income. So now with Fotolia being part of Adobe Stock, I think that's changed, and contributors are very curious about how that's going to play out. So they're not, they're less likely to commit to an exclusivity option at Shutterstock. So I think there was a time there where Shutterstock could have been extremely damaging to the competition if they had have offered an exclusivity option. But that time may be passing now with Adobe getting into the market. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Let me just quickly show you a little result here from the Microstock industry survey from Microstock Group. That's what was your top grossing site, the top 5 answer. Shutterstock, almost 80%, which is crazy.
That's before Adobe, right?
Yeah, let me just, can everybody see it? Yeah. Yeah, that's before Adobe, yeah. That was 2014.
Right.
But it's really crazy, like, look at these numbers. So what does this mean for the buyer? That's the question everybody is asking. What does this mean for the buyer? Because everybody thinks, okay, there's a huge percentage of same images available in any of the top 5 players. What do you think, guys?
Paul, do you want to take that one?
I can jump on that. I don't think. I think it's known. I think it's known by the buyers that pretty much the same content can be found on most of these sites. I think what they're seeking is the experience. Lee mentioned it before. Shutterstock has a very good search engine and user interface, which is, when you're dealing with buying and licensing a lot of images, it's really important. So I don't think it's a huge selling point to have different content, unless if we're talking a bit like what iStock did 4 or 5 years ago, when it's a substantial amount of content as compared to your whole collection. So if you start reaching 20, 30, luckily 50% of your 20 million images that are exclusive to your content, then you're making a big difference. And yes, that can, depending if the content is high quality, obviously that can make a difference. If it's only 5%, 10%, I don't think at the buyer's level it makes much difference. Lee?
Yeah, I think the buyers have other priorities. I mentioned the ones who are more sophisticated photo buyers are probably aware of how the industry works and know that most of the same photos are available. The less sophisticated buyers, the low volume buyers, the new buyers, probably don't know. But it's much less important than the search functionality delivering up the images they're looking for. There's a lot more than just looking at how images are sold and what they've been rated at review. And you have to look at the buying history of the buyer, where they're located in the world, what keywords they're using, what keyword combinations they're using. There's a lot of data analysis and calculation that goes on behind the scenes. Both Shutterstock and Fotolia do that, but I believe Shutterstock does it better. So I think the buyers are most concerned with how long it takes them to find a suitable image, and secondarily concerned with which image is available where, or whether one agency has better images than the other. It's much more about the time, given the price is so low.
Great answers. Just let's quickly jump on some banners. I saw Adobe obviously is ramping up their their marketing material and what they spend into the market to really get their brand out there. What do you think? What does Adobe Stock do next to promote their stock site? I mean, they just did the press releases and all that, and the news site wrote about it. But will there be a next big, huge step, or what should they do now to really, make it faster and get the people on board? Lee.
Yeah, I think they'll do everything. I think they'll spend a lot of money on advertising, which obviously they're starting to do. I'm not sure how much yet, but there's ads popping up everywhere. Adobe's a big company. They've got a lot of money. And if they want to get this brand out there in a big way in a short amount of time, they can certainly invest the capital required to do that. I think they'll use all the typical examples. So they'll do PPC advertising, they'll do organic search optimization, they'll look at social media, they'll look at content marketing, sponsoring of events and publications, banner ads, they'll do everything. The implications for Shutterstock on that, I think, are huge because as well known as Shutterstock is among photo buyers, Adobe, it would be hard to argue that Adobe is not better known than Shutterstock. So if Adobe, with the power behind the resources they've got behind this new Adobe Stock brand, it's a serious concern for Shutterstock. Something they're going to have to run hard to keep up with. Paul, thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Lee. And I mean, we've seen Shutterstock has been very aggressive. 25% of their revenue is in marketing, and so, but Adobe is a formidable marketing machine. They have many years, decades of experience in digital marketing since they've been selling software and licenses and seats. So I'm 100% in agreement with you. I would just add that opportunities for Adobe also lies in offering bundles with their software. So if you upgrade or if you buy Photoshop, you get maybe a month free or credits towards images in the collection. So they can sort of, as they sign up new users or upgrade some of their users, they can entice them to switch over. So they have extremely powerful marketing tools at their hands, and we talked that previously before is also integrating obviously Fotolia within their other existing products. So not a big surprise. I mean, it's the engine of Microstock growth is heavy marketing, and there's between Shutterstock and iStock and others, Deposit Photo and other lesser ones, a lot of money being spent, and it's a requirement. Amos?
I agree, yes. I was pretty impressed by the last Apple numbers when they announced that they already got 10 million customers for their new Apple Music, which obviously are a lot of free users yet. But if Adobe does the same thing, what Apple did to Spotify with Apple Music, then it certainly is very easy for them to get these guys on board. It could be like a free bundle or whatever. It could be a very low price, a new entry promotion. And I'm really curious to see how they get them on board, since they are already everywhere. They are in every event. There's Adobe all over the world, not only in the US but also in Europe. Their brand recognition is great. Everybody knows them. Everybody uses them, and it's so easy to put some banners or automated sign-up links, whatever, in their newsletters, in their apps, and every people use the software. Even in Adobe PDF, right? In the PDF reader, they could add ads and make people sign up. Even people who might not even use Adobe Photoshop yet and all that. I mean, they certainly have the right touch points to all the users, and I think that's in my opinion, that's a real threat to Shutterstock, because I know the numbers everybody is spending on marketing, like Paul said, are huge. Like, it's very hard to sign up a new user, and it's very hard to get them, especially from Google via the normal PPC, and it's even harder from Facebook and all that. And they spend a lot of money just to register people, and not even that they spend money, just to register them on the site, and that's what That's what Adobe already have. I heard numbers 4.4 millions they should already have in Adobe Cloud now. That's a massive amount of customers they just convert with one click. Just let's quickly jump to another competition which recently came up, and I found it very interesting. Lee, you wrote about them. So tell us a little bit what's the new competition.
Well, there's actually three that we can talk about. I think the most interesting was 500px. They raised $13 million, Series B, I believe.
13.
Yes, 13. And so that's a non-trivial injection of capital into the company. 500px is already set up and already selling licenses. Their imagery is of a different nature. It's definitely not stocky type of imagery, which is Shutterstock's bread and butter. It more competes with Offset, Shutterstock's premium brand. And so then that's it's a small news tidbit, but certainly something to watch out for in terms of competition from Offset. The other one was Stocksy, also competition for Offset, relatively non-stocky imagery, selling at a higher price. They've released a couple of statistics saying that they've grown 580% in the last 12 months. They're still a new company, so high growth is expected, but that's still a significant number. And then, of course, we had GoPro entering into the market, very famous camera manufacturer, action cameras. And so their model is a little bit different. It's not very open. You have to register to see the imagery, and they're going to be very selective with the video contributors that they'll accept. But it's another relatively big company with a huge brand getting into the market to compete with Shutterstock's footage business. So, Paul, thoughts on any of those three?
No, I think you covered them well. I'd love to add a couple more. It's a very competitive space. One is, since we're talking about footage, Pond5, who received a pretty hefty investment last year of $64 million, and announced recently that they had 4 million videos available in their library, which is a big threat to Shutterstock Video's offering. Exactly like GoPro, GoPro is still just starting. And I noticed a little tidbit which I thought very interesting this past week is I don't know if you guys saw Flickr announce a new version of their Pro version. And I'm not going to go into details about what it is, but at the bottom of it, people who signed up receive credits for Adobe Cloud subscription. The reason I'm bringing this up is because Flickr announced last November that they also would offer and launch themselves in the stock photo licensing and start offering pictures from their huge collection. I think it's in the billions of images on the marketplace. We haven't seen the product yet, and to me, I'm just wondering is there an agreement between Adobe and Flickr, and maybe Flickr will use Adobe Stock as an outlet for licensing their content? Is that the first sign of a cooperation between the two, or is it just a little promo thing? So it's something to keep our eyes on. Flickr is definitely, and Yahoo obviously behind, who owns Flickr, is definitely a huge threat, and that could be the first signs of some kind of partnership. Amos, what do you think?
Amos?
Yeah, so I just want to throw in some other topic quickly. I'm sorry I had some audio issues with Paul. But IM has opened their marketplace as well in Germany and UK now. They started to have it in US, and they grabbed another 18 million investment also from Peter Thiel, well known in US, in April 2015, and I think they are selling well. Like a lot of people I know, they are selling well through IM, and now where Germany is open as well, they might be a very interesting competitor for some of the, for Tolia Instant Collection, as well as some mobile collections of other stock agencies, as well as for Stocksy, obviously. What do you think, guys?
Lee?
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of money. Just quickly jumping back to the Flickr deal, I think that's interesting given the history of Flickr with Getty Images, another big Shutterstock competitor. So for anyone who's not aware, Flickr did a deal with Getty where images from Flickr were channeled through, and there was a lot of curation going on, but the images that were selected, the contributor of those images to Flickr was invited to have them interesting to see what they do in terms of bringing that back to Shutterstock. Shutterstock has an app where contributors can upload photos that they've shot on their mobile phones, but they haven't put those images into a separate collection, and they definitely haven't pushed that app or those styles of photos. So, given how many companies there are popping up into the mobile space, it'll definitely be interesting to see what Shutterstock does, if anything, in that space in the medium-term future.
Sounds good.
Lee, can you just quickly recap the last couple of sentences were lost due to issues with Google Hangouts? Sorry.
Okay. I was just saying the IM deal, and for anyone who's not familiar, IM is EYEEM. The deal is from Peter Thiel. That's huge because of who Peter Thiel is, and obviously it's a big chunk of cash too. There's a lot happening in the mobile space, and Shutterstock's not really doing too much. They have an app for contributors to upload photos they shoot on their phone. It's an excellent app, in fact, but they're not pushing that. They're not providing mobile shot photos separately to the buyers. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, if anything, in the future.
So there's a lot of competition going on, and I think we'll discuss some of the competition more in detail in the near future, but that should be everything about Shutterstock latest challenges in the market, and how Adobe Stock is doing in the future. We'll discuss that as well. Paul, can you wrap up for a second?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think we see Stock is navigating in very competitive waters. Adobe Stock and the launch of Adobe Stock, and now the hiring and as we mentioned, the increased marketing efforts are only the beginning. I think we will start seeing also other companies jumping in and aggressively jumping in, and big companies with deep pockets. So it's a competitive environment. Shutterstock is not a weak company, so my take is that they're gonna keep on growing, even though if it's a competitive market.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Even though we've spoken for the last 30 or so minutes about the challenges that Shutterstock's facing, just want to reinforce that and to balance that out, that they're definitely leading the microstock industry. They're probably the biggest threat to Getty Images, who's the biggest company, depending on who you are, still the biggest company in the stock photo industry as a whole. And they've proven to be exceptionally innovative and very fast-moving. So while we've been talking about the challenges they've had during this call, the company is still extremely strong and still very much in a very powerful position. So that's all I have. Wrap it up.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm totally on the same side as you both. I think Shutterstock is doing great, and we will talk about them in the future, and they will really overcome the challenge. That's for sure. So just for everybody who joined and just watched the whole video, where can you find more information about us? It's on stockphotoinsight.com, and you can book us. You can actually book not only all three of us or individually, but you can also book and ask us one question, and you get a feedback in maximum 24 hours from all three of us. So we get 3 different insights. You can book this consulting on stockphotoinsight.com. Thank you both. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.
See you all next time.
Yeah.
Bye.